I do hope you can see me today from where you are.
Ich bin ein Billy.
If I'm generally anything, I guess I'm generally miserable. This modern world of science and invention is of particular interest to women.
The people, I would say, there is no patent. Don't you patent the sun?
I regard myself as a soldier, though a soldier of peace.
Welcome to the Biographers.
Can we just slow down for a minute?
I will also say that's my 3D printer right there. You can see it. I have not used it once.
Oh, I have some things that I would like to 3D print. So let's
can do it
put
together.
Our heads together.
It's just one of those weird ones where the romance of 3D printing, that sounds strange to say, but it was there for me where I was like, ooh, I can just print out whatever I want to. So I bought the thing it was off of Craigslist. It was used. And then I got home and started looking at the whole process of how to go through what I need to do with it, because this is one of those goo ones. It's not one of the move around on a tray and spit out the you know what I'm talking about? The spindle of plastic?
I have not really seen it much. I understand that it kind of like prints with a thread that kind
Exactly. And it melts it together, basically.
Yeah.
So that's one way. And then there's another way, which is what I have. And you literally take this like resin, this goo, and you put it into a tray. And then there's like this platform that lowers and touches the goo. And what happens is underneath the goo that there's all this series of teeny little heat platforms, basically. So as it pulls this thing out of the goo, the heat platforms will basically heat up in the exact kind of shape that it needs to, so that layer by layer it's constructing this thing and heating it and then having it stick together, and it's pulling it out of the goo.
Oh, weird.
It looks strange, but it is unbelievable, and the resolution is way higher, so it's like way smoother and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, because the thread printed stuff is like you can see the threads.
Probably
from what depending
I
on.
Yeah, there are different ones you can.
I've gotten some. What did I get? I got something that was like a cup holder for the Nalgene bottle that like goes in the regular size cup holder, but then it's big, so your Nalgene bottle can sit on top.
Ooh, that's cool.
But it was 3D printed, and you could see like the lines in it because of that thread version.
Yes,
but I don't know. Bailey, he 3D prints a lot of stuff. He was doing something. I feel like when the pandemic started, there was this thing when you could 3D print something that was used by like nurses for masks, or I don't.
Oh yeah, the things that go in the back of your head.
Yes, and so he was 3D printing those.
Oh, that's cute.
And
Go Bailey.
He also said that like he's got this scooter. We called it the Scoot. He's had it since we were in college.
Like a Vespa?
Yeah, but it's not a Vespa. I can't remember what it is. It's some brand.
It's similar to, yeah.
Yeah, okay. But there was a part for it because he's just been fixing it up. It's been like in his backyard forever. He's fixed it up a number of times over the years. And there was some part that he needed, or like it didn't exist. And so he just 3D printed a part for his like Italian scooter thing. And I don't remember if it literally never existed or he just couldn't find it. But it took a couple tries, because sometimes you think you have the specs right and you print it, and then you have to like 3D print it.
Yes, and that was the thing I learned about as well, where it was like, okay, this isn't just like a boop 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 go, yay, I have a thing. It's like a hobby. You kind of have to like go through a process or whatever.
Learn.
You do.
And you have to learn how to use the design software stuff. Yeah. It's definitely, I don't know. So now I'm thinking about how do we tie this to Queen Victoria? And I think about the Great Exhibition and like all the stuff that was shown at that Great Exhibition that Albert put together, and all the inventions and things. And like, just can you even think that those people would fathom what we're talking about right now, like the things that they invented back then?
What I love and what I'm thinking about right now is that it's not the sponsor that's making us professionals right now. What you just did was a pro move, man. Somehow you navigated that conversation from 3D printing into Queen Victoria. That is a master move of conversational shifting.
Maybe I should have been in public relations or something.
I mean, holy guacamole, that is a beautiful thing. And you're right. I love it.
Yeah, we get, because all things point back to Queen Victoria.
Obviously, as the old adage goes.
Well, speaking of which, welcome to the Biographers podcast. Woo! We're here. We are in our last episode. Can you believe it?
Holy dude, it's been a haul.
It's been a haul about our beloved Queen Victoria.
Whew.
So,
Dang.
yeah, no, we didn't know how many episodes it would be. I think I did estimate 8 or 9, but then I was like, it should be 5, and then it ended up being 8. We'll try to be a little more concise in future series, but
We will try. Although I will say though, one, I've already said this before. I love long series, so it's cool by me.
we don't want to leave anything out. That's a cool tidbit.
Agreed. Two is I feel like we are brand new to what we do here. So a part of my first series and your first series was half learning how we want to continue to do this moving forward. So for anybody that's out there going, man, this was an exhaustive 8-part series. Yeah, we're learning from this too, and we're trying to figure out how we want to move forward. But with that being said, at the end of this episode, I'll tell everybody who I'm doing next as my series. But I just finished episode 3?
Writing.
Writing.
I haven't, yes.
I finished of my series. I finished writing episode 3, and I'm into episode 4 fairly far. But it's one of these where I'm into episode 4, and I'm going, dang, dude, we don't exactly have like a ways to go, but like I'm trying. There's just this person I'm going through. There's so much cool stuff. I just couldn't not talk about it.
And that's the same thing about Victoria. It was like you're like, even in the end of this episode, I was like, oh, I got to wrap up this thread that's connected, or it's not thorough. And yeah, we can ADD all over it and be like, wow, okay, so they were talking about Eton College, so let's learn about Eton College and all the people that went to Eton College. But I think that's part of the interest.
Exactly.
Is you don't just learn about the individual person, because I think the point of this is learning about how this person impacted the world, what was impacting them from the world. People aren't just people like in a vacuum.
No, and I think what you're trying to say, hopefully, because this is how I see it, is a huge part of what I want to do with this whole podcast is show the interconnectivity of all these people.
And we're not, by the way, we are not specifically picking people who are interconnected. We're just finding that they are, which is cool.
Yeah, which is the craziest part about it, and which is one of the things that I love about it the most, is that it's like you discover these people's lives, which, by the way, I've already gotten to with the person that I'm on right now. I found out this tidbit last night when I was working on it and this has happened several times with this person, that straight up, top of my head to my toes, goosebumps of excitement, of like, no way, seriously? Like facts that are so cool. So anyways,
let's wrap up Victoria so we can get on to person numero 3. Okay, cool. Well, okay, so as I said, we will wrap up the life of Queen Victoria in this episode, and we are picking up in 1885 when Liberal Prime Minister Gladstone's second government fell. And this was much to Victoria's pleasure. Remember, he was the one who was like kind of right next to Disraeli, and she loved Disraeli, and she hated Gladstone. And it was, he made her feel incompetent. He was kind of stuffy and dry. And we kind of said he was actually a little bit the way Albert was. Like, other people thought of Albert. So that was kind of ironic. Apparently, when his government fell this time, she apparently cheered like a schoolgirl set free from school.
And she would have been like, what, in her 60s, 70s at this point?
Yeah, she was in her 60s. Yes. But I want to point out, this is not the last we're seeing of Gladstone.
Okay.
So we'll get back to him shortly. Now, he was replaced by Lord Salisbury, not of the steak. By the way, I did Google this because I was like, I wonder if that's why it's named Salisbury Steak, but it's not.
Isn't Salisbury a town?
Probably also.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, most of these lords are from like the place. Yeah. Anyway, but Lord Salisbury, he was tall, balding, and had a really thick beard. So I kind of think of like, I can picture that tall, balding, and like a big like ZZ Top beard.
It's a good look for an older gentleman.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's funny you say that. He was Victoria's first prime minister that was younger than her.
Oh, and he was balding with a beard.
Yes, well, male pattern baldness really doesn't necessarily have an age.
That is true. That is true.
So they got along really well due to their similar beliefs, including sharing a concern for the conditions of the poor. I mean, Victoria was always concerned about the conditions of the poor because she'd read Charles Dickens and she was concerned. He introduced an act into the House of Lords that made landlords responsible for their hygiene of their housing. So if the place wasn't clean, the housing would be shut down. So he made these landlords responsible because usually they were just like slumlords.
Okay. Wow. There's cleanliness standards for lords. I like it.
Yes. Very good. Less than a year later, Salisbury resigned from Parliament. Another I don't have the majority, so I'm stepping down situation. And Victoria was worried that Gladstone would come back into power, so she refused to accept Salisbury's resignation. And then she tried to create a coalition of moderate and conservatives to keep the liberals out. So she was like, there's the moderates, conservatives, and the liberals. And she was like, you moderates and conservatives, you get together, keep those liberals out, because Gladstone was a liberal. She actually asked Lord Tennyson, who was a mutual friend of hers and Gladstone's, to convince him to just not stand for election.
It's like Game of Thrones, man.
Yeah, well, Tennyson was like, I'm not going to be able to tell him to do that. But despite her attempts, Gladstone became prime minister for a third time.
Ugh.
His main goal was to help solve the problem in Ireland, which we've talked about. He attempted to pass bills that would pretty much give Irish autonomy in their daily lives. It was known as Home Rule. In 1886, he put forth a bill that was voted down. It was the author of my primary source was like, this was probably the closest that they were going to get to actually a real solution for the Ireland problem, as they called it. He called his bill a unique opportunity to resolve these issues. Victoria was against Home Rule. It didn't pass. Now, it didn't pass. Edit that.
Okay.
It didn't pass. We'll be getting back to Gladstone again shortly. Victoria's time in the 1870s and 1880s was the prime of her own political career. Many commented on her at the time, saying they were, quote, constantly amazed at her industry. Lord Salisbury said, I may say with confidence that no minister in her long reign ever disregarded her advice or pressed her to disregard it, without afterwards feeling he had incurred a dangerous responsibility. She knows what she's talking about.
And this would have been in the thick of the Industrial Revolution,
yeah,
right?
Yes. And he was impressed with her, and people were, as we've talked about it, it was like she was kind of meek, and Albert was running the show, and then she went through that depression period where she just was never out at all, and people never saw her. And by the 1870s and 80s, she was really involved. Now,
I feel like almost this had to have been partly a distraction from, what was his name again? John
Brown. Yeah, John Brown died around here.
I was going to say John Reed, but that's from
John
Mabel.
Brown. Yeah, different John. Well, at this time, public image of Victoria was that she was compliant, domestic, and a reclusive queen. It was 30 years, or actually only 20 or 30 years after her death did the world find out how politically savvy she really was when her letters were published. Lord Esher noted that Victoria always gave way to the views of a united cabinet, but would, quote, not always yield at once to the opinion of a single minister. So if all of them came and said, we're going to pass this, she wouldn't stop them. But if one guy came and was like, I have this, we got to do this, she would be like, hold up. You got to get more people to agree with you before we'll push this through. So, I don't know, she was looking for consensus.
Yeah.
We've talked about Victoria's and sometimes Victoria and Albert's influence in politics, but what are the official rules of her influence, given that Britain has no written constitution directly outlining it? According to Parliament.uk, the status of the UK constitution is as follows. The United Kingdom's constitution is composed of the laws and rules that create the institutions of the state, regulate the relationships between those institutions, or regulate the relationship between the state and the individual. These laws and rules are not codified in a single written document. So they do not have a constitution.
To this day still?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
It's all a bunch of stuff together. That is this is how we do things. And there are written things, but it's not one long constitution like we have.
By the way, I did ask my coworker.
We, the United States.
Fair enough. I did ask my coworker, Danny Arthur, which, Danny, if you ever hear this, hey, buddy, about the UK political system in one of our work calls, and I was like, hey man, feel free to say no to this, but if you ever have a second to just write me up a little something or other, a couple paragraphs, just kind of give me a general broad strokes overview of how the UK government works, I would love that. And he basically goes, yeah, I can't do that. Like
It's like too
it was just it was too complicated.
It's nebulous almost, it seems.
Yeah.
Well, so we mentioned in a previous episode, my friend Ziad had offered that he would do that. And he was listening the other day to that episode, was like, you mentioned me in your podcast.
Yay.
And now we've done it a second time.
Hey, Ziad.
Okay. So Walter Bagehot, it's Bagehot. I looked up how to spell it, but it's like, or Bagehot. That's it.
Bagehot.
A journalist and businessman said that the fact that there's no real written outline for what the Queen was authorized to do actually adds to her prestige. He said, quote, "When there is a select committee on the Queen, the charm of royalty will be gone. Its mystery is its life. We must not let daylight upon magic." I love that. "We must not bring the Queen into the combat of politics, or she will cease to be reverenced by all of the combatants. She will become a combatant among many." So I was like, "Ooh, that's really cool." Like, we're like, "Oh yeah, she's just kind of like up there, like puppet string pulling stuff," but it's like that's part of it.
I was like, it seems like they feel the same way, or at
Yeah.
least I mean, at the time, anyways, the political system felt the same way.
Yes. So then he kind of analyzed this, and he concluded that the monarch has 3 rights: the right to be consulted, the right to encourage, and the right to warn.
Interesting.
Which, you think about it,
That's
that kind
kinda
of is what
cool.
she's been doing,
Yeah.
and it is it's really cool. It's like, okay, I'm gonna let you guys all do what you want to do, but here's what I have to say about it.
It's interesting because it almost makes me feel more now after hearing that it's like the royals almost represent this ambassadorship of the culture of Britain. So when these political things start to happen, it's almost like having a professional sounding board that represents the core values of Great Britain, that they go, oh, maybe actually us doing that on the political spectrum of the world isn't good because that's just not what Britain is about. That almost is like what it feels like.
I think that is definitely part of it. He continued to write that the role is primarily ceremonial and symbolic, but Victoria didn't really keep herself confined to ceremony. She participated.
Of course not.
He talked about the functions of the royal family, not just the sovereign, but the whole family. These included sweeten politics by the seasonable addition of nice and pretty events. So have
Nice
a
and pretty
ball
events, okay.
or a jubilee or
Fun.
something here and there. Provoke loyalty among, this is interesting, the uneducated or simple-minded by being a visible symbol of the unity to those still so imperfectly educated as to need a symbol.
So that's kind of what we were just
What
talking
were you
about.
just saying? Yes. And like for them to be able to see, like maybe they don't know what's happening in the House of Commons, whatever.
House of Lords.
Yeah, House of Lords, but they can see the royal family and they
Right.
can like understand. And I mean, it's a little bit like belittling the uneducated or simple-minded, but
Well, sure, this is also 18.
right, people
whatever.
weren't educated simply out of like it wasn't practical.
There probably wasn't even public education
Yeah,
at this
well,
point.
I mean, there was
Mandated.
definitely education, but like it wasn't. I'll mention something related to this later, but it's not like you could just open up your phone and get a notification about what was going on. Like
Well, that's half the story of humanity over the past 1,000 years, is that religion was such in control because you literally had one person that was like, I can read this book for you.
Yeah.
Because nobody else
you
can.
went on Sunday to church and you got the information.
Yeah.
Okay, did you ever see that movie? It came out a couple years ago called The News of the World.
I did with good old Tommy Hanks.
Yes, it was a great film. And I think it was based on reality. So one person would get all the newspapers of the major cities and he would go around to the smaller towns, and this was in Texas, and he would read the news to the people,
Yeah.
and they'd pay a little bit to be in the room to hear the news. And then I know that as soon as he could get a new Dallas Morning News, he would get rid of the old one. But I thought that was such an interesting concept because someone had to go around and tell people the news.
Yeah, and there was probably at least 50% of those people couldn't read, and the majority of the rest couldn't afford the paper themselves or didn't want
or
to.
practically you couldn't get the newspaper to the town.
Exactly.
So just bring one newspaper and have one like a town crier kind
Right.
of like say it.
So kind of having Queen Victoria as this sort of beacon
Yeah,
right?
a beacon.
To be like, hey, everybody, this can be somebody you look up to. I kind of get that. I don't know if it's at the cost of the however many billions of dollars tax dollars it goes in their system, but this is not my battle to fight.
This is not our battle. So, okay, the functions of the royal family, the first two, sweeten politics by seasonal addition of nice pretty events, provoke loyalty among the simple and uneducated. The third was to welcome foreign ministers and dignitaries, so literally be like a dignitary.
And it feels like
head
they're
of
still
state.
doing that to this day.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense there. Now, I like this one. Provide an example of morality. And he noted that many of Victoria's ancestors did not do this. There were quite a few affairs and like things like that. But the idea was, and she was providing an example of morality. I mean, she was this queen who had been married and had the devoted husband and all the children, and she was very pious and went to church and
minus that extramarital affair she had.
well, if
I
you
don't
believe
care.
that.
John Brown?
It wasn't extramarital. Her husband was dead.
Well, it was out of okay, and I guess not extramarital, but it was out of wedlock, and for the time that would have been very
scandalous.
anti-church of England?
anything.
Yeah,
Of anything.
That's true. It's true church of anything.
So, okay, the last point of the British family or the royal family was to provide stability during times of transition, which would serve as some kind of disguise for changes of government. So she's consistent. While these prime ministers are in a revolving door of prime ministering, she is the consistent one. And it's like, who's going to just come to her and serve her and therefore serve us?
Gotcha. Okay. That's kind of cool.
I liked all that stuff. It was interesting. Traditionally, monarchs were expected to agree with their ministers, but Victoria did not do this. She thought it was insulting to just put a stamp of approval on a policy handed her way. But she never vetoed a cabinet proposal. She sometimes fought to defeat them, but she never just flat out vetoed them. Remember when Gladstone brought the bill to de-establish the Irish Church? We talked about it in the last episode.
Yes.
Victoria was against this bill, but she actually assisted in making it go because people were okay with it. So even though personally she was anti the bill, it still made it through. Now, one thing that Gladstone and Victoria agreed on was, I don't like this, not giving women the right to vote. By the
That
end,
is surprising.
I know. By the end of the 1800s, 2/3 of men could vote. Victoria and Gladstone agreed that women should not have any political power because it might cause them to undermine the source of their own power, which was, quote, the delicacy, the purity, the refinement, the elevation of her own nature. So women were these... I've read about this before. Maybe we talked about it, but like women were thought to be these moral beacons. And by giving them a right to participate in politics, it would sully their morality. Okay.
I'm not sure how you draw that line, but
I mean, I don't think it makes logical sense in our modern brains.
Modern brains, right?
But this was part of it, and this is honestly part of like the patriarchy.
Well, I honestly, as you were saying that, what was going through my mind, I was like, man, they really worked on her over the years to get her thinking this, you know?
I mean, I don't know that it's necessarily that. That's the way it was. That's the way it always was.
But I think back to when we first started and Victoria as like a teenager and stuff like that, she kind of was of the more like, I ain't taking that nonsense.
She was
like,
very headstrong.
Very headstrong. And then the years went on and it feels like it was whatever we want to call it, whatever circumstances, it just feels like all these guys for so long were going, no,
You're not
women
smart
don't
enough.
get to do this.
Yeah.
And then by the end of her life, she was like, yeah, I guess you're right. And that makes me sad.
Yeah. Well, regardless of all that, we'll talk a little bit about progress for women toward the end of the episode. But but it was an interesting thing, and I'd heard about that before. That sentiment. I mean, in reality, everyone should have the right to vote.
Well, maybe not children, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Okay, the frontal cortex must be somewhat formed before voting, but yes. Okay, well, let's move out of politics and prime ministers for a minute. It's 1887, and that means it's time for a pretty ceremonial event.
I was in my mind literally going, it's 1885 and it's time to party.
It's Victoria's Golden Jubilee, the celebration of 50 years on the throne. So remember Victoria's coronation and her wedding and like the flowers and the gold and the description and the pomp and the circumstance. This party was not the same.
Oh, no.
50 years into her reign, she had white hair. She was a widow. She'd given birth 9 times, lost a husband, lost 2 children, lost 5 grandchildren, her mother, Laizen, and some beloved prime ministers. Oh, yeah, and John Brown. So she was like not really totally in the mood for like a big old party. Needless, I mean, they did have the Jubilee. She wore a black dress, her signature, and a bonnet rather than a crown, which was against the the objections of her advisors.
Right.
In her procession were 43 family members riding state carriages pulled by cream-colored horses. From the crowd, she heard shouted, "You got it, old girl! You done it well! You done it well!"
That is amazing.
I love it. And it brought tears to her eyes. She arrived at Westminster Abbey and sat atop scarlet robes draped on her coronation chair. But note, she did not wear the robes. She sat on top of them because she was
Okay.
wearing her black.
Okay.
Women were instructed to wear their pale mourning dresses of white or gray. Now, the men, however, wore their scarlet uniforms and fancy suits. So all the men looked very fancy and the women looked very mourning.
Quick pause. I know that she's still sad and in mourning, and I remember we did talk about at one point that she was like, moving forward, nobody could wear anything but black and gray and everything. And you were like, well, I think that cooled off after a while, and she was just still wearing black.
It was 2 years officially people in the court could stop wearing their mourning. But at this party, the women were still instructed to wear mourning.
She was like, yo, we need to be sad at this jubilant
Everyone's
event.
sad. If I ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure where we're at with that,
Or
with the
if
mourning
I
garb.
ain't happy, ain't nobody happy.
I'm also still thinking about the man in the crowd, and the accent in my mind he has is like super, almost like Cockney, where it's like, you got it, old girl.
You done it.
You done it, old girl. You done it well.
You done it well.
That's how I hear it.
Okay, well, there you go. right from the source. One concession that Victoria made for herself. For the first time in 25 years, she trimmed her bonnet in white lace and diamonds.
Cool.
So she did spruce up her little mourning bonnet. Of course, only days later, that's what fashionable women of London were wearing.
Of course. She's setting those trends,
She's
man.
a trendsetter. Like her coronation and her wedding, England was abuzz with delight. There were events, including parties and sporting tournaments and dinners for the young, the poor, the elderly. A 12-year-old Winston Churchill was alive at the time and wrote to his mother from school, "I can think of nothing but Jubilee." All 7 of Victoria's living children were home for the celebrations. They all made prepared statements for the Jubilee, but Victoria did later say to her personal secretary, Henry Ponsonby, "The Queen approves of these answers, but always wishes the words, 'My dear mother,' to be inserted. Not only on this occasion, but always. The Queen wishes it should be never omitted when her children represent her."
Dear mother.
Yes, she craved public expression of the love of her children. So they said all these things, but they never said, "Our dear mother."
It was like all moms, really.
Yeah, I know. Yes. But, I think they had a lot of different there were a lot of kids and they all had different relationships with her. Okay, let me describe the celebrations with a quote from my primary source because it's just a really pretty description. The 2 days of celebration concluded with a party for 30,000 school children in Hyde Park. They stuffed themselves with meat pies, buns, and oranges, as well as milk, lemonade, and ginger beer. The entertainment were 6 military bands, 20 Punch and Judy shows.
What was a Punch and Judy
I knew
show?
you would ask. It was, they were puppets. You've probably seen them before. Punch and Judy. It was like Punch.
Oh, okay. And he's got the little bat?
Yeah, and it was like one puppeteer would, and he was called like the Punch Master, would have Judy, and maybe there were other characters sometimes, but he would do something, and then the other puppet would always be kind of like, the butt of the joke.
So it was like kind of a precursor to Itchy and Scratchy.
Yeah, yes. Or Itchy and Scratchy was inspired by Punch and Judy.
That's what I'm saying. It was a
Yes,
precursor,
yes.
to Itchy and Scratchy.
So Punch and Judy, yes, there were 20 of those Punch and Judy shows.
Wow.
Now, I had to look up this one too. There were 100 Lucky Dip barrels.
Well, I mean, you got to tell me now.
A Lucky Dip barrel is a big old barrel filled with like water and then prizes.
Okay.
And you would just, I think pay, or I don't know if you had to pay maybe but anyway, it was like a carnival thing. So you'd stick your hand in, you grab whatever you grabbed, and that was your prize.
Oh, okay.
So there were 100 of those barrels around. This was for the kids, so probably they didn't have to pay. There were 1,000 skipping ropes with Jubilee handles. So, I mean,
dude, it's again with the souvenirs.
I know, but that's the thing. I think I told you my Aunt Mary has like the souvenir coronation cup from like many of the monarchs, but the 1900s ones, because further back, I think she didn't necessarily get any of those. But anyway, and then 10,000 little balloons and 40,000 other toys. And then it said giants strolled alongside pygmies, so that you remember how she always liked like odd people, like she knew Tiny Tim or Tom Thumb or whatever, and
then she liked the Muscle Man guy.
Yeah, the Muscle Man. So there were giants and pygmies, and so like that was always cool because of the height difference and stuff like that. So all these, a lot of spectacle. I thought it was cool. Prisoners were pardoned in celebration of the Jubilee, except for those who had been charged with cruelty to animals, which Victoria said was unforgivable.
Hey, I mean, rock and roll, but she's so just like straight up murderers. She was like, yeah, you're fine, but if you hurt a doggy.
I don't think it said every prisoner, but many prisoners were pardoned. Yeah. Probably like stealing a loaf of bread.
Petty crimes, yeah.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Okay, so let's talk about everybody who was there. Vicky, Victoria's eldest daughter, you remember Pussy?
I was about to say, you mean...
She was there. She was not in the best spirits. She was struggling with unpopularity back in Prussia where she lived with her husband Fritz, under suspicion because she was British. Also because her eldest son, Wilhelm, the one who had been born, I don't remember if you remember this, Breech. I don't know if you remember this. He was born Breech, and he had this kind of permanent partial paralysis in his arm because of it.
I don't know that we talked about
we talked about the difficult birth, and I think maybe we mentioned, but it was like a mild note. Anyway, so he had been, his firstborn son, he'd been born Breech, and something kind of messed up his arm. So it was kind of always paralyzed and like a little smaller than his other arm. He blamed his mother for his disability and would never forgive her for it.
Well, fuck that guy. Excuse me.
There's more. You'll learn more about him. Victoria didn't want him to come at all because her grandson was just a little jerk. And but also because of his excessive military conservatism. He was really haughty. He was like scheming all the time. He was just like a bad grandkid.
Okay, yeah, no, he's a turd.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Vicky begged for him to be there, though, because she didn't want there to be any sort of perception of division between England and Germany. So she was like, no, you got to invite your crappy grandson. Chancellor Bismarck, Otto von Bismarck.
That's a great name.
He was worried that the impetuous Willie was, quote, susceptible to flattery and could plunge Germany into war without foreseeing or wishing it. So shortly after the Jubilee, Vicky's husband Fritz had a lump in his throat, which was removed after several painful and clumsy attempts with using a hot wire to get it out. Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Ugh, that makes me move in my chair in a bad way.
Yep. We love Victorian medical procedures. So 6 German doctors said this was throat cancer. But Vicky, she sent for an English doctor, Dr. Morrell Mackenzie, who removed a large part of the lump because it kept regrowing. Like they'd chop it out and then it would grow back. Which is not necessarily a good sign of something being benign.
Dude, yeah, I'm like, oh, you can't see my face right now, but it's not happy.
I'm just rubbing my throat, everyone. So anyway, Dr. Morrell Mackenzie said that it was benign. The German doctors were like, no, it is malignant.
It's growing back, fool.
And Vicky really wanted to believe this English doctor. That the German doctors were angered. Her son Wilhelm, who they called Willie sometimes, so I might say Willie also was like, are you kidding me? And then he just decided to plot against his own father to get him out of, he's so sick, I might as well get into his level.
Oh, great.
His grandfather was still the emperor, though. So it was like grandfather's still alive. His father has the throat tumor, and then Willie's trying to weasel his way up.
Gotcha.
He even did something where he asked his grandfather, he's like, Dad's so sick, can I sign all the official papers that he would have to sign because he's not well? And his grandfather was like, yeah, you can. So he was
Snaking
like
his way in there.
snaking his way in. Ugh. As I mentioned before, Willie, I'll just say Willie, he was more traditional and conservative, and Fritz and Vicky were very progressive. He resented his mother for all of the bizarre, painful, and traumatizing treatments she'd put him through to resolve his paralysis after birth in his arm. And because we love Victorian medical procedures so much, let's talk about one.
Oh, joy.
So when Willie was little, he was subjected to animal baths when he was just a few months old.
Okay.
What are animal baths, you might ask?
I am asking, yes.
I'm sorry, I am going to tell you.
Oh, God.
Okay. Twice a week, a hare would be killed and sliced open, and Willie's limp little arm would be slid inside of the still warm body of the hare in hopes that the residual life force of the hare would pass into his arm and heal it.
I'm sorry? So they're making friggin' rabbit gloves? Living rabbit gloves?
Sleeves.
Dude, that is sinister.
This worked exactly 0 times.
Yeah.
They also tried electric shock therapy, and I guess that to do that, they would like harness him into this thing that kept him upright and then like zap his arm. Also did not work. So this is a little bit why Willie's probably a little turd.
He's a little unhappy.
I mean,
little Willie.
In his defense, he was a little bit, subjected to some weird, cruel, and unusual medical treatments.
Yeah.
I mean, we think back to Victoria's father and the bleeding and all the stuff, the letting.
That one is one of those that's like, okay, but man, it's so close to 1900 where we're like, I know that literally surgery is happening at this time. And then yet somehow some doctor out there was like, guys, hear me out. I think there's still some credibility to this whole slicing open the rabbit and putting him in somebody's arm thing. Like, that's crazy to me.
Doesn't it also seem like a little bit anti-Christian, like a little like
pagan,
voodoo and pagan? Yes,
100%. And especially, it's so in my mind like this weird, like hypocritical thing where I know it was her daughter, but it's like over across the pond, Victoria's like, animal cruelty shall be punished for life.
Oh, that's so true. I didn't even think about that.
And then across the way, her daughter's like, kill the rabbits.
I mean, touche. I didn't even think about that. I mean, I wonder, Victoria, well, they exchanged 4,000 letters, so she probably didn't know about it.
But she had to have, there's 4,000 letters.
Yeah,
she
must have known.
Little Willie today had to go under his 37th animal bath, and I will tell you, the cries of the creatures never get easier.
What a wonderful Halloween costume that would be. An animal bath.
Oh, that's a deep historical reference.
You would use a fake rabbit. Okay, let's keep going. So back to Fritz. Turns out the German doctors were right, and he definitely had cancer. So Fritz had more surgery, and knowing he was pretty much already dismissed as basically dead, we just watched the first half because I fell asleep because I've seen it a million times, not because I don't like it, of Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And he's like, I'm not dead yet. I'm not dead yet. They gonna go for a walk. So anyway, I'm just thinking about Fritz. He's like, I'm not dead yet.
Yes, he will. He'll be stone dead in a moment.
He will be stone dead in a moment. Anyway, so he had a detailed draft of his succession on his desk. He had it written up in like there.
Wow.
His other children, Charlotte and Henry, actually went to support Willie instead of their dad. Now, Fritz, I mentioned that the emperor was still alive. Fritz's father died, and so Fritz actually became the emperor in March of 1888. And it was an unfortunate time because he was about to die himself. And nevertheless, Vicky became empress, and Victoria was elated, saying it does seem an impossible dream. So like they were waiting for this for so long. She told Vicky and Fritz, who were humane, progressive people, to be firm and demand respect despite Fritz's illness. So Victoria came in with some very good advice. Just, you guys are in charge. It doesn't matter if he's about to die. Like, for now, you're in charge.
Treat it that way, yeah.
Well, Fritz had had a tracheectomy a few months before, and he was voiceless, so he had to write out his instructions. Meanwhile, Vicky was so unpopular because she was British and her children hated her and all this stuff. There was a lot of like scandals. Someone had like taken her private letters and like published them in German papers. Like there was a smear campaign. They were like, you delayed his diagnosis. I mean, I think if you get throat cancer in the late 1800s, it's probably not much you can do anyway.
Yeah, not a great prognosis.
Yeah. Well, so Victoria, with all this going on, she was a mama bear, right? She had to intervene. So she took a trip to Prussia in April, a couple months later, and she was like, listen, I'm gonna get these people whipped into shape. She saw Fritz. It was the last time she'd see him alive. And then she saw Otto von Bismarck. And while the details of the meeting are lost to history, when Bismarck walked out of this meeting, he wiped a handkerchief across his brow and declared, "Mein Gott, that was a woman one could do business with."
Oh.
Like, Victoria's a strong one.
She knows what she's doing.
Apparently later he amended his comment to sound a little more patronizing, and he said, quote, "Grandmama behaved quite sensibly at Charlottenburg." So he kind of at first was like, damn. And then later he was like, well, yeah, she was pretty sensible.
It's like, there's this clip of Kevin Hart talking to Don Cheadle, and Kevin's like, how old are you? And Don's like, I'm 58. Kevin goes, damn. and Don Cheadle looks at him, and Kevin goes, no, what I said. And Don's like, man, you have to say it like that. And Kevin goes, what I said was, damn it.
Well, basically that's exactly
Feels exactly like this guy.
Exactly the same thing. Completely exactly the same thing. Well, okay, regardless of all of this, the result was positive. Vicky was given a little more autonomy, and then she was able to sign the documents on Fritz's behalf because she was empress. And so, like, Willie was kind of pushed out for a minute there. But it was short-lived. Fritz only lasted for 91 days in his rule. He died June 15th, 1888.
Poor Fritz.
Okay, we've been down this rabbit hole here. Pun intended.
Oh, God.
Actually, I did not think of that before. Before now.
Oh, man, that's going to... From this point on, somebody says rabbit hole, and be like, oh, God. You ever heard of an animal bath?
Well, you might be asking, why are we talking so much about this in the first place? This is like Victoria's biography, but we're really focusing on Vicky and her son-in-law and all this stuff. Well, it matters because you remember Albert and Victoria were so thrilled to betroth Vicky to Fritz, and they believed that there could be a beneficial alliance between England and Germany and Prussia to make Prussia more progressive. Witz, that's their celebrity name. That's it. Vicky and Fritz were benevolent, good-hearted. They were progressive, anti-Semitism, right? They were pro-Jews.
Oh, they're anti-Semitic. Okay.
Anti-Semitism.
Gotcha. They were pro-Semitic?
They were...
Is that it?
I don't know.
Oh, that should be a thing. I am not anti-Semitic. Let's move on.
They were against the people who were against Jews. Now, if Fritz had been emperor for longer than 91 days, then how might history have looked different? Wilhelm was the new emperor, and that was the beginning of the events that led to World Wars I and II.
Wow.
World War I would end up with Victoria's family actually changing the royal family name from Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. Remember that name? Victoria Saxe. They changed it to Windsor, because they had to be disassociated with this part of the family, which is what they're called today. Wilhelm refused to meet with Bertie in Vienna soon after this because of some comment that Bertie had made at Fritz's funeral. Victoria just thought her grandson was obnoxious and pretentious, and his wife was odious. Like, they were just really malicious people. And to really kind of show how bad he was, in 1927... Wilhelm wrote, while in exile in the Netherlands after World War I, which they lost, quote, "Press, Jews, and mosquitoes are a nuisance that humanity must get rid of in some way or another. I believe the best would be gas."
Whoa.
So this guy was awful.
Whoa.
And so while it's like she was long dead before these things Victoria was long dead before like all of these events took place, but she could see it.
Totally. That is wild.
I mean, I don't know if she could predict like all of that, but she could see like his nefariousness.
It's such a strange choice of extermination method, right? Of gas, right? And that obviously it's so synonymous with the Holocaust that it's weird. It's one of those like, is it a coincidence or is it possible that somehow that was just part of the anti-Semitic conversation that was kind of happening amongst these insane people around then?
I think that it was probably all like it was just a thing that ended up happening, and it was because people had been talking about it for a long time. It's just interesting. I just think about, okay, so Victoria was the queen who almost never became queen. Like her dad was so far down in the list of succession or the line of succession, it was kind of amazing that she even became queen.
Yeah.
And then because of those events, like these events happened. And because of things that happened later when Bertie became king, and then the succession after that, Queen Elizabeth became. And the way that she became queen was weird too, because her uncle was the king and he abdicated. So it's like, it's just all of these weird things that just happen in history. If it were a decision tree or like one of those choose your own adventure novels, like what would have happened differently if things had happened differently? I don't know. It's just odd to think about.
If the domino fell in the opposite direction, so to speak.
Yes. Yeah. But enough about Wilhelm and Vicky and all that stuff. Let's talk about Gladstone again, because he's still here. At this point, both he and Victoria are getting older. She would take care to point out how old he looked and how stooped he was.
I like it.
Needing a walking stick. But she was old too, being pushed around in a wheelchair that was called a pony chair while getting daily massages for her sciatica. And the pony chair, we'll have it on the website. It's kind of like a little mini carriage for one person, and the pony would pull it.
That's super cool.
It was awesome.
I love it.
That was what she rode around in.
That sounds awesome.
The end of her life, the pony chair.
It makes me think of, have you seen that type of, it's like an Eastern European type of horse racing where they're think of like a person in a recumbent bicycle, but they're being pulled by a horse, and it's like intensely fast horse racing. It reminds me of that. It makes me think of
I'd have to look that up, but it does seem a little similar. I
just know there's a player, a really famous player with the Denver Nuggets, who is from Eastern Europe. I can't remember exactly where. And that's like what he does when he's home. He literally has his own track and he like races them around and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so they're both old, but Gladstone was 10 years older than Victoria. He was in his third term as prime minister, which, of course, Victoria despised.
Obviously.
She hated that he could keep getting voted in over and over. She was like, oh, this is so frustrating. I get rid of him and he comes back. Toward the end of his tenure, they would have their meetings and he would have to sit closer and closer to her so he could hear her because he couldn't hear, which I'm sure made her even more, grumpy. Over the years, he tried to support the Irish people through acts that would effectively give them their independence. He did so again in 1893. He proposed a gradual self-government bill that the House of Lords declined by 419 to 41 or something like that. It was really bad. His goal of a self-governed Ireland would not be realized during his lifetime. After one more quick switch from Gladstone to Salisbury back to Gladstone, he was made prime minister for the last time, ultimately resigning on February 28th, 1894. While his health, vision, and hearing were all failing, he said that upon his final resignation, quote, he had never seen Victoria looking better, and she was at the high point of cheerfulness. She just hated that guy.
Apparently.
Gladstone had been known as the Grand Old Man, so GOM, to those who liked him. His liberal views and his determination to support Ireland, that's why they were like the Grand Old Man. People really liked him. His opponents called him God's only mistake.
What?
Grand Old Man, God's only mistake.
That's pretty harsh, though.
Yeah. Victoria's letter in response to his resignation was cold and without praise or recognition. He and his wife Catherine went to dinner at Windsor and stayed the night. And in the morning, Catherine went down and begged Victoria to just, she's like, can I just tell him that you believe that he was devoted to you, and despite your shortcomings? Like, she was just like, what can I tell him? He's just fretting over this, like, because he never really got it. He just couldn't understand the Queen's dislike for him. And he never knew what he'd done and what he'd done to deserve it. He wrote in his diary, there was something of a mystery which I have not yet been able to fathom and probably never shall. He died on May 19th, 1898, which was about 3 years after he stepped down. Victoria had never liked him and was reluctant to even write to his widow because, quote, how can I say I am sorry when I am not? It boiled down to her disagreements with him on Ireland and his personality. She just didn't get along with him. She said, quote, I cannot say I think he was a great Englishman. He was a clever man, full of talent, but he never tried to keep up the honor and prestige of Great Britain. He destroyed the Irish church, and he tried to separate England from Ireland, and he set up class against class. The harm he did cannot be easily undone, but he was a good and very religious man. So in addition to all this, she was seeing like all the stuff he was trying to do is for Ireland as literally breaking apart the empire, and she didn't like it.
Yeah, which is, we won't get into it a ton, but for anybody that's out there that's not familiar, this whole thing with the Troubles in Ireland, this was a really, 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 really big deal, to the point where it was echoing across any Irish person in the country or out. Good example of that is I'm starting to watch through Boardwalk Empire from years and years ago, and it all takes place in the 1920s. And there are literal characters in the United States that are Irish that are talking about that they're going through campaigns trying to raise money to get guns to defend themselves against the English to try to win their independence. So this is going to be going on for another 20 plus years after this point even. Mm-hmm. So again, just for anybody that doesn't know the scope of this Irish independence movement, I mean, you could argue is still going on technically in a weird kind of a way. I'm not even going to touch that one though. But it was big and complicated and not good. It was big, complicated, and not good. And the people in Parliament should have been trying to come to a resolution. And as we said before, like, Victoria never stopped anything that was put in front of her desk, but she would maybe like try and say, well, I don't think this is what should be done. But if people could get together and agree, she would sign off on it, just like letting the Irish church disconnect. What was words aren't working. Not be part of the English church, right? Become independent or whatever. So she was okay with that sort of thing, but he could never seem to get it across the goal line himself. Yep. Okay, so a couple last things about Gladstone. His death was not put into the court circular. And Victoria later told Lord Salisbury, oh, it was an oversight. I don't know if it was. Of course. So Gladstone was followed briefly by Lord Rosebery. I like that name. He was a moderate, 46-year-old liberal that the Queen chose. He was then replaced again after an ineffective leadership by Victoria's favorite, Lord Salisbury. Her new favorite. I mean, her favorite was Lord Melbourne, and then her favorite was Disraeli, and now it's Lord Salisbury. I feel like, Disraeli feels like her boy. Oh, yeah. I mean, loved Disraeli. She loved, yeah. And people liked him, too. And he was very... he's one of those names that it's like... I've heard of him. Me even too. If you're not like... That name pops up and you go, I know that name. Why do I know that name? And I feel like it's because he's commonly seen as a beloved leader in the UK. And so was Gladstone, actually. I mean, really? Because he was going for Irish independence. That makes sense. Yeah, and he really, there was a lot of stuff that was done around just like helping the people in his time. He was prime minister 4 times overall, and he was, I think I read that it was like he served longer as a prime minister than any other prime minister. Wow, okay. Because of his like compiled times. I don't know. So cool. Well, by now, Victoria was known as the grandmother of Europe. She loved her own grandchildren and was involved in their lives. Her descendants would go on to populate the royal houses of Germany, Russia, Spain, Greece, Romania, Portugal, and Norway. Jeez. Alice's daughter, Alex, would go on to marry Tsar Nicholas of Russia and would eventually die along with her children in the Russian Revolution. I think you asked about that before. Yeah. But, like, this family is a lot. Well, and when you have 9 kids,
there's a lot.
So wait, so that was her granddaughter?
Yes, her granddaughter, Alex.
So Anastasia would have been the great-granddaughter of Victoria?
Possibly, yes.
That checks out.
Yeah, that seems about right.
I did not know that. This is why history makes me go, wow, like Owen Wilson all the time.
Wow. Do that again.
Oh, wow. It's not very good. It's not a great Owen Wilson. It's just the Owen Wilson that I've got. Oh, hey, wow, that's great. No, now I'm losing it.
Yes. Anastasia was Victoria's granddaughter.
So does that mean her daughter was married to the Tsar?
I don't know. So,
It's gotta be then.
Let's just leave it at this. She was either the granddaughter or the great-granddaughter of
Victoria.
Victoria. That's all we've got for the moment, folks.
Okay, yeah. Well, we can double confirm that for the next episode.
Yeah.
At the end of this episode, I have questions we asked ourselves and didn't answer.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we'll write down these questions, we'll write down these questions and we'll answer them too.
Yeah.
Because honestly, every single question like this, it's like I'll never get done with the
Oh, I
episode
know.
if I
It's
never
a
find
huge
it.
rabbit hole. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, rabbit holes. Okay,
Dude, it's just like a huge animal bath. You have no idea.
moving on. Out of the animal bath. On January 14th, 1892, Bertie's eldest son, we're just learning more about all the descendants and people right now. Eldest son, Albert Victor, known as Eddie, died of pneumonia.
Oh.
Eddie had been set to marry his cousin, Princess Mary of Teck, in a few weeks. Eddie's younger brother, George, got close with Mary of Teck in their grief, and then they got married. So that happened.
There you go.
Years later, George would become King George V.
Hey, all right.
Grandfather to Elizabeth to Elizabeth II. So the Elizabeth we all knew.
And father of Bertie from
Mm-hmm.
King's Speech.
Eddie's death was gossiped about for years. So not the one that lived, the one that died of pneumonia. His death was gossiped about. He was rumored to have been the client of a homosexual brothel, the father of an illegitimate child. So those two don't really jive. Like, which is
Yeah.
it? Experimentation.
Yeah, sure.
At one point, he was rumored to have been Jack the Ripper.
Oh.
But it was disproved. There was like, literally, he was geographically not where he should have
not
been
possible,
for Jack.
yeah.
But like, you know, there's so many like suspicions about who was Jack the Ripper. So I just thought that was interesting. Thought I'd throw that in there.
Twos.
Let's talk about a new character in Victoria's life. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
Abdul Karim, eventually known as the Munshi.
I thought you were going to... I immediately went to a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You know that.
I know. And actually, it was funny when I was writing his name in this, I accidentally inverted Kareem, Abdul Karim, and I was like, no, that's not right.
Now it's like immediately go to, hey, I know you. You're Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. You play basketball for the Los Angeles Lakers. I'm sorry, son. You have me mistaken for somebody else. My name is Roger Murdoch. I'm a pilot. Do you not know what I'm talking about?
No.
Airplane?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
Don't
I just know
you
that Mike from Breaking
even.
Bad was in it.
Mike from Breaking Bad was an airplane?
Uh-huh.
When?
He's really young. That's why you don't recognize him.
I'm sure. Is he like a very small part?
He's like, I feel like he's in the cockpit at some point. I can't remember.
Is he one of... Okay. I mean, I've seen the movie 1,000
I've seen that movie like
times.
once about 10 years ago, and then I was like, oh, look, it's Mike.
Aubrey.
I know, it's-
This is a sin
Okay,
against
but-
comedy.
Remember how I think we've talked about, remember when you were growing up, if you didn't have the VHS of something, you just didn't see it.
I mean, that's
Or if your
fair.
friends didn't have it, and then you get to a certain point in life where there's a new movie or a new streaming show dropping every freaking minute. I don't have time to go back and watch the classics, but I just watched The Mummy with my dad.
Tom Cruise one?
No, the original 1930s
Oh, 30s. Okay.
The Mummy,
Okay.
which was one of the first talkies.
Okay. And was it awesome?
Uh,
I love old movies, so.
it was a movie. I mean, anyway, I would just say just watch it. But
Well, you need to watch Airplane again because I would argue that it is top. I mean, personally, for me, easily top 3 best comedy scripts of all time. Like, it is just.
okay, I will watch Airplane again.
Every 30 seconds, there is a joke that should at least make you giggle or laugh. Like, it
Okay.
is one of those movies that's just like. I mean, it's masterful. Anyway, let's move on.
Well, yes, I'll watch Airplane sometime soon. Okay, so New character in Victoria's life, Abdul Karim, who was eventually known as the Munshi. He and some other Indians had been invited to serve Victoria during her Jubilee year. He was 24, Victoria was 68, and he quickly charmed his way into her good graces and began telling her stories of his home in India. You don't have to make that face. It wasn't like that.
I'm just intrigued. It's more like a guy telling cool stories.
Yeah. So he taught her Hindustani and about the culture and history of India. Victoria said, "Why not? I've been Empress of India for 10 years now." She's like, "Sure, I'll learn all this
I
stuff."
should probably learn something about the country that I'm supposedly ruling
Empress
over.
of, yes. So she quickly promoted him from servant, saying, quote, "It was a mistake to bring him over as a servant to wait at a table, a thing that he had never done, having been a clerk or a munshi in his own country, and being of rather different class than the others." So the other guys that were there, like he was like a slightly elevated class, and he'd had, I don't know, better jobs back in India. So she's like, let's elevate him.
Gotcha.
Also because she liked him. He was promoted to the Queen's Munshi, and that's what I'll mostly refer to him in the rest of this, the Munshi, or I'll say Kareem. But
do you happen to know what Munshi stands for?
Clerk.
Oh, it is just clerk. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Or secretary or clerk.
Okay,
secretary or clerk. And it's Munshi.
Munshi. Okay.
It's Munshi.
Okay.
Anyway,
cool.
so he was promoted in 1888 to Munshi, and any photos that had been taken of him serving her food before this were destroyed because he was new title. So they destroyed all the photos to be like, no, this guy's more important than just serving food. It only had been 5 years since Brown had died, and the Munshi was rising to the top and making the royal household rather angry. She gave him some land in Agra in India, and a furnished bungalow at Windsor, and cottages at Balmoral in Osborne. He was also able to get invitations to prestigious events for his father and brothers. While the Munshi was in England, he came down with a bout of scabies and also something called carbuncle.
I shouldn't laugh, but
no,
it
you
sounds
shouldn't, because
funny.
it's pretty terrible. It's a bunch of like pus pockets.
Yeah,
But I
that's
like
not
the
good.
name Carbuncle.
Carbuncle. It sounds way more cartoonish than it should.
No. Well, I mean, oof. Anyway, so she made sure that her doctor, Sir James Reed, Dr. Reed, took care of him. Interestingly, Dr. Reed made most of the documentation about Victoria and the Munshi's relationship because he was around the most. She was older. The doctor was around a lot.
Yeah.
The Munshi was considered John Brown's successor. Not only was he the second lower class person that the Queen had elevated, but he was also proof of the Queen's kindness and her disdain for racism. And he was an Indian, and he was Muslim.
Good on her.
Yeah. So over the next decade, the Munshi became a fixture at court. He'd gone back to India for a while and brought back his wife and two other aunts, who were actually also his other wives. And he brought them to England. Dr. Reed noted that at each time he went to tend to an ill Mrs. Abdul Karim, it was a different woman. The Munshi was also promiscuous outside of these three wives.
Whoa.
He had a series of venereal diseases, which Dr. Reed seemed to take pleasure in reporting to the Queen. While her relationship with the Munshi was quite unique, it was motherly, it was not romantic. When told that the Munshi had gonorrhea, Victoria was taken aback, but tolerated it. I mean, think about it. John Brown was like a big drunk, and they're like, he's a drunk. She's like,
He's still pretty cool.
like, it doesn't matter for me.
Yeah.
The Munshi was dissatisfied that the papers didn't report enough on him. He wanted status in the royal household, which was the opposite of John Brown. No one loved having John Brown around, but he wasn't like asking for recognition.
I was gonna say, this guy seems like he's getting a little too big for his britches.
Yeah, he wanted to rise in the ranks. Dr. Reed and Bertie would complain about the Munshi like to each other behind everybody's back. Bertie was like just too chicken to say anything to his mom. Like, mom, this guy, what the heck? But then again, remember, she had never been very kind to Bertie, and she was like, you're dumb, and let me have your head examined because I think your brain isn't right.
Poor Bertie.
Yeah, poor Bertie. Anyway, the Munshi would get upset about his perceived slights, and he wrote a letter to the Queen one time after he had to storm out of a wedding. One of her grandchildren, some grandchild, was getting married, and he was like ordered to stand in a place that he didn't think was like the right
appropriate for himself
for
or
his
whatever.
for his status or something like that. So after this, at this wedding, because I think it was in Germany or somewhere, he was taken around town in a carriage with a footman because she was like, "Oh no, Munshi, here's your carriage. I'm so sorry."
Oh, forgive me, Munshi.
He was invited to royal concerts, but people would avoid him. And the people at the court were genuinely concerned with his hold over the queen and her kindness. Now, regardless of his intentions, Victoria was uplifted in this time. She was happy. She would laugh at stories told by her ladies in waiting and comment on the beauty of her surroundings, once saying, quote, "The lights so lovely on the purple hills, golden birches interspersed with the still perfectly green trees." Like, this is not the writings of her for the last decades. Like, she's definitely perking up a little bit. Yeah. Finally, after all these years, she was cheerful, and she even enjoyed performances of historical or theatrical characters. In 1894, the Munshi had been exaggerating his status and claimed that his father had been a surgeon of the British Army in India. Dr. Reed did a little research and discovered that his father was a hospital assistant and made out to expose the Munshi. Dr. Reed and his friends put together a report showing his low birth, and Victoria was outraged, calling it class snobbery, saying, quote, "To make out that the poor good Munshi is so low is really outrageous, and in a country like England, quite out of place." Victoria had known archbishops who had been the sons of a butcher or a grocer. Dr. Reed was reprimanded and told to stop with the investigations. She was like, who cares?
This feels like it has whiffs of racism from these people's parts too. Not just that they were like, this guy's rising up or whatever.
We'll get there. Despite her conservatism about women's rights, she was progressive in religion and race. Victoria's suspicion was that this was all blatant racism.
There we go.
And she was right. I mean, she was picking up what they were laying down.
I could sense it. It's like people just avoiding it. He can't be that mean.
Yeah.
Come on.
And he wasn't mean.
No, and that's what it doesn't seem like.
She decided to stamp out prejudice generally. Lord Salisbury was actually reprimanded one time at this time for using the term black men. Like, she was like, no racism. We're not talking about it. She'd been assured by priests that even Muslims could contain the spirit of Christ, and she told those around her to act accordingly.
Well, as long as the priest says so, then you know.
Well, she was very religious, so if the priest said so. But I mean, the reality was what she was really trying to say is all children are children of God.
Yeah.
That was the sentiment of that right there. In June of 1898, I keep saying 19 on this one because we're like so close. 1898, a brooch went missing, and Victoria accused her dresser of failing to pin it on properly. And later it was found, and it was determined that it had been stolen and then sold by the Munshi's brother-in-law to somehow sold, and like they figured all this out. The Munshi said that it was an Indian custom to just pick up things that had been dropped and take them. I couldn't figure out if this was true or if he was just feeding her like a lie so that she wouldn't get mad or something.
I would say then, if there are any people that are familiar with older customs, maybe even current customs of the people of India.
There's something nice on the ground, pick it up, it's yours now.
If it's just sort of finders keepers mentality or whatever, I would be curious to know if that is like a cultural
I wasn't able to Google that, but anyway. So
I would imagine it'd be tough to find that as like, if you went to a website and said, what is a list of cultural norms in America? It's like, I wouldn't even know where to start. You
totally
know what I mean?
Unknown,
so,
yeah.
But if for any listener out there that maybe happens to know, shoot
Let
us
us
an
know.
email, thebiographerspodcast@gmail.com.
Yep. Well, so after all this, Victoria sided with the Munshi and his brother-in-law. Dr. Reed said about it, quote, "So the theft, though proved absolutely, because they had proof, was ignored and even made a virtue for the sake, no doubt, of Karim, about whom the queen seems off her head." He's like, she's crazy.
Yeah.
Years later, when the Munshi went to Europe with the queen one time, he invited a friend. I'm going to say this wrong. Rafiuddin Ahmed. He was a member of the Muslim Patriotic League in London. Ultimately, it was determined that Karim himself, the Munshi, wasn't really some sort of like mastermind spy, but his friend was kind of like a political guy, and he was maybe getting information from Karim because at this point, Victoria would get her like special box with all the correspondence every day, and she'd open it up and the Munshi would be there. And sometimes she'd be like, oh, this is from India. Here, you read this thing. And maybe he would even respond to it. And so, and he wasn't, he was smart in that he was able to teach her. She spent 13 years learning Hindustani and like learning. I mean, this was a long time. And
so she probably was pretty good at it by the end.
Yeah. So he was there for a long time. There were all these suspicions, though, that like he was maliciously feeding information to like his buddy that was in this political group. I guess they went under surveillance for a while. Nobody really found anything. But Dr. Reed pointed out, like, this is getting a little bit out of control. It could be a threat to security and to the reputation of the throne itself. Like, you've got this guy from India who's like right there with all the official correspondence, and it just doesn't look good, is what he was trying to say. He also told her that Dr. Reed also told Victoria that he had been questioned about her sanity. At this point, Victoria burst into tears and admitted that she knew what people said about her. Dr. Reed confronted the Munshi about his motives, and ultimately, despite all of this, Victoria continued to defend him. And one reason that the author of my primary source speculates is she was really ill and immobile at this time. She really couldn't walk very much. And John Brown, before these guys, and then now these Indian guys, the Munshi and the other guys that came with him, they could like lift her up and move her from her chair to her bed and all this stuff. And she said that they never pinched her. So they were really gentle and were able to like give her the physical service that she needed to like live comfortably.
Yeah, to survive.
And so and they were really kind, and she just really liked them. And so all of this, like, there were all these smear campaigns. Now, I'm going to jump a little bit ahead. Years later, like after Victoria died, the Munshi was sent back to India with a pension that was at Victoria's request. He ended up dying 9 years later after she died. So like basically he was there when she died. Immediately, like it was the funeral, and then like Bertie sent him home, and he had a pension. He didn't have any descendants. It possibly could have been something to do with all the venereal diseases he had. He lived on the land that Victoria had given him. He died at only the age of 46.
Dang.
Now, the interesting thing, his distant relatives kept his diaries. He also had a lot of gifts and things, but over the years, those things kind of disappeared or were stolen or sold or something. But some relative held on to his diaries of his time with Victoria. Now, the royal family had destroyed most anything related to him. Jeez. So in like 2008 or 15, so like 100-something years later, somebody, I can't remember who it was. I was reading this article. This person went to India and found these distant relatives of the Munshi and got his diary. And they said that it was really interesting that they'd even kept it because the Western media were like, he's a jerk. He's awful. He was manipulative. He was trying to, take advantage of the queen, blah, blah, blah. So this guy wasn't remembered in history as a good guy.
Yeah.
But in reality, his diaries show like they really just did have this rather genuine relationship where he cared for her. He taught her in her last years.
Right.
And so it's interesting because the way that history is skewed by the people who are in control of history.
Yeah, I mean, and it really does sound like it was one of those cases of just like with John Brown, she found this nice person it was a little bit of a different situation, but she found somebody who was kind, that she could speak with, that I don't know that he did ever get to the point where he called her Victoria, but it was of that similar feeling, that similar vibe with a person. And I just get this sense through that story that the political system at the time, the representatives that were there, just wanted none of it. And especially they were seeing a person with dark skin and going,
and who was Muslim.
Oh, how dare this person come into my place or whatever. And it was just an automatic, I'm not even going to listen to you. You are bad, period. Let's erase you from history and call you a bad person.
Well, yeah.
That's sort of what it feels like to me.
He wasn't Christian. He had multiple wives. He was a little bit of a philanderer, but like, in people we've learned so much. People are many layered, and I think the relationship between them was not nefarious.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it. I saw it when it came out, but there is a movie called Victoria and Abdul that is based on this story. Judi Dench played Victoria. Yes.
I feel like I saw the preview for it and I just had no concept of even what I was getting into.
It was a good one. If you feel like watching it, I would say go watch it. And of course,
now I'm curious.
There's some historical, they've taken a little, leeway,
some
but
liberties.
like generally it's pretty on point, and it doesn't tell the story like he was this bad guy.
Cool.
Okay. Moving on, the year is 1897. It's time for Victoria's Diamond Jubilee, 60 years on the throne. That year, more champagne was imported to Britain than any other year before in British history.
Dang.
At this point, Victoria was too crippled to get out of the carriage, so they had an open-air service outside of St. Paul's Cathedral. She didn't want to pay for another Jubilee celebration hosting kings and queens, so she ordered none to be invited.
Wow.
No reigning monarchs were allowed, including her own grandson, Kaiser Wilhelm II.
Wow.
That same one from earlier.
Yeah.
And he was a little furious about that. The focus instead was on the empire that had been built over her reign. She sat under her black lace parasol, weeping with overwhelm. Some subjects thought she was literally mystical. At this point, the average Briton was 46 years old. Only 1 in 20 people in Britain was more than 65 years old.
Whoa.
She was 78.
Dang.
She had outlived so many, it seemed as though she may never die. Given this math, most everyone in the crowd would have known only Victoria as their monarch. It's kind of crazy.
That's really crazy.
It's funny, though, because us just recently, that was Queen Elizabeth II.
Oh, I know.
And she was 10 years longer than Victoria.
Oh, I know.
And so it's like, it's so funny to think that, like, actually, we kind of do know what that feels like.
I know. It was like how when I was a kid, there was a point that I felt like Pope John Paul II would never die.
Yes.
He was just always going to be there.
He was always the Pope. But yeah, I mean, this is really what it is. There was actually something, I didn't put it in here, but now I'm going to say it because we're bringing this up. There was this big balloon that was like and it said Victoria, and then
like a hot air balloon.
Yeah, and then this little girl at the Jubilee was like, "Oh, look, it's Victoria going to heaven." Like, they thought of her as a god.
I was hoping that it wasn't a comparison to her size.
No. It had nothing to do with that. Remember, she lost a little weight after she stopped having kids. So.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, it was just like people really thought of her. We talk about that ceremonialness of the crown and the magic of the crown. People were literally beginning to believe she was magic.
It's crazy.
So Victoria had outlived so many of her peers, including Charles Dickens, Charles Darwin, George Eliot, Marianne Evans, Lord Tennyson, but Florence Nightingale, she was still alive. She was bedridden. She'd been bedridden for 30 years after some virus that she'd caught when she was in the Crimea. So
Florence Nightingale?
Yeah,
No
I didn't know that. I
way.
read that. I was
I
like,
had no idea.
Bedridden for 30 years. Anyway, but she was still working toward better sanitation against famine and for hospital planning and whatnot. She celebrated from her bed, but with decorations on her balcony. Victoria was getting more and more blind from cataracts by this time. A writer named Arthur Benson met her around this same time and described her voice as, quote, "It was so slow and sweet. Some extraordinary simplicity about it, much higher than I imagined it, and with nothing cracked or imperious or wobbly. It was like the voice of a very young, tranquil woman." And I thought that was interesting because I think about my grandparents as they got older and just how their voices kind of changed. But he said she had this light and young voice.
It's funny that you say that because my grams, I feel like I saw her a month or two ago, and her voice is exactly the same as I remember from when I was 5 years old.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so
maybe she's like Queen Victoria.
yeah.
Now, most of the photos of Victoria from this time were of a stern face. And this was partially because it took so long to expose a photo. Like, if you stood there smiling, your face would start hurting. But there are some where she's smiling. One which was published at her Jubilee, despite the objections of her daughters Helena and Beatrice, who didn't think it was appropriate for her to have a smiling portrait, published.
How dare she show joy?
I know. Her daughter Vicky once said, quote, "My own dear mama's face has a charm that no photograph can reproduce," which I
kinda
thought was
sweet.
really sweet.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about all these different portraits and paintings and everything of Victoria. It's like, what does she actually look like?
Yeah, exactly.
Mark Twain was there. What? He had been living in Europe and was asked by the San Francisco Examiner to report on the Jubilee.
Sick.
He wrote, quote, "British history is 2,000 years old, and yet in a good many ways, the world has moved further ahead since the Queen was born and than it moved at all in the rest of those 2,000 years. But together, she has seen more things invented than any other monarch that ever lived." And some of those things include the railway, steamship, words, telegraph, telephone, sewing machine, electric light, typewriter, and camera. Additionally, she saw the expansion of voting, creating affordable newspapers so that more people were more informed. So we were talking about that earlier. I knew this was coming. I've read ahead. Anesthetic, modern sanitation, workers having the right to unionize. We've mentioned that. A reduced work day, more equality for women, including, this was an interesting case. A man had kidnapped his wife. He was asking for restitution for conjugal rights. I guess she was not letting him.
Yeah.
And the judge ruled in the wife's favor, saying,
good.
"You're not owed conjugal rights."
Whew. Good. I was worried about that one for a second.
So that was really good. Also, like in 1886, there was an Infant Child Custody Act that was introduced when the idea of a child's welfare being considered in a custody dispute was like brought up. So before they were just like, give him to the father. And now they're like, wait a second, what would be in the best interest of the child? So this was in this time.
Okay. It's not Owen Wilson. Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Also, at the time of Victoria ascending to the throne, women had been expected to be, quote, angels of the house, staying at home and guarding morality along the lines of that voting stuff. Yeah. But by the end of her reign, women were living alone or with roommates or boarding houses, and they were allowed to control their own earnings and assets once married.
Hey, right on.
So lots of things had
Baby
changed
steps.
there. Now, generally, things were better. Tariffs had been repealed. Food was cheaper. Housing was better. The wages were higher. But what was the cost? Millions of Chinese dying in the Opium Wars from 1839 to 42 and again in 56 to 60. The mass deaths of indigenous people in Paraguay, Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Islands, to name a few. The sentiment in England was that the expansion of the empire meant progress for those lands rather than the reality of domination.
Yeah.
So,
all in the name of progress.
yes. Now let's run through the list of death and tragedy from the past decade that befell Victoria. We do this every episode.
Yay.
If we remember, at her golden jubilee, her beloved son-in-law Fritz was suffering from throat cancer, which would take his life months later. His wife Vicky was about to be diagnosed with breast cancer shortly after Victoria's diamond jubilee. So her son-in-law was dying right at the golden jubilee, and now 10 years later, her daughter Pussy is going to not
Pussy.
doing so well. Vicky would only outlive Victoria by 5 months.
Jeez.
Helena, the daughter that Victoria never really liked much, had 4 children and a husband named, I just had to put this in because it's amazing, Prince Christian of Schleswig, Holstein, Sonderburg, Augustenburg. That's his name, hyphenated. So Prince SHSA, because I'm not going to say all those words again. He lost an eye while his brother-in-law shot him during a hunting accident.
Yikes.
Accidentally. Just two years later, son Alfred's only son, also named Alfred, so Alfred's son, her grandson Alfred, died with what was publicly said to be tuberculosis, but actually was suicide. He had shot himself because he wanted to marry a commoner and his mother wouldn't let him. But it took him 2 weeks to die.
Oh.
Yeah. And then
That's
right
rough.
after that, his father, Alfred Sr., died of throat cancer just a year later, which caused Victoria to exclaim, "My third grown-up child besides 3 very dear son-in-laws. It's hard at 81. Like, she's like, oh, I've lost a third child and all these people. It's hard at 81. Okay, so the Second Anglo-Boer War broke out on October 11th, 1899. It occupied Victoria's 80-year-old mind. Now, here's a short synopsis of the war. I will tell you, in doing all this research, when we get into the stuff about the military and the wars and all the things, I'm not saying I don't have interest, but it gets complicated, and I'm like, this is a lot. And so I literally went and got a synopsis of the war, and this is what I'm going to read just so that we can know it without me having to I like it, bumble through explaining it. Okay. The Witwatersrand gold rush in South Africa caused a large influx of, quote, foreigners to the South African Republic, most of them British from the Cape Colony. They were not permitted to have a vote and were regarded as unwelcome visitors, also as invaders, and they protested to the British authorities in the Cape. Negotiations failed, and in the opening stages of the war, the Boers, the locals, launched successful attacks against the British outposts before being pushed back by Imperial reinforcements. The Boers then engaged in guerrilla warfare, which I know we learned about as children in school. The British forced many Boers, mostly women and children, into concentration camps. The Britons used a scorched earth policy, basically burning all the villages to the ground. Similar to what happened in the Crimea, her ministers and advisors were lying to her about the reality of the war, saying, quote, men had done their best when they were actually lying dead in fields, and that they didn't mind the war. They were all jolly well, glad to be there and fight.
Of course.
It came out after her death, all of these atrocities of the concentration camps and the burnings, and that it had all been kept from her. So she was kind of innocent in not knowing that this was happening.
Jeez.
She had actually directed that animals in the war be treated well, and despite this, hundreds of thousands were slaughtered. She always insisted on sending more troops because she was like, let's send more people to help. She visited widows and wounded, just like she did with the other war. She personally knitted scarves and comforters and caps to be sent directly to her, quote, dear brave soldiers. Jeez. She also sent, this is amazing, 100,000 tins of chocolates decorated with her face to soldiers on New Year's, one of which deflected a bullet and saved a man's life.
Whoa! Kind of cool.
Kind of cool. Sadly, her favorite grandson, Prince Christian Victor, the eldest son of Helena, was killed while fighting in this war. It devastated Victoria. She lost all interest in food. Dr. Reed was very concerned and prescribed an opium-based thing called Dover's powder so she could sleep. It was just a medicine of the time.
Dover's powder.
It had opium. That was the real thing. Sure. He wrote to Bertie saying that she was deteriorating and that he advised against Victoria traveling anywhere. Victoria continued to weaken, and Dr. Reed said that she was emaciated by November of 1900. In December, she traveled to Osborne for Christmas. Okay, sad story here. Lady Churchill, who'd been her lady-in-waiting for 50 years, was there. She died in her bed on Christmas Day. She just died in her sleep, Lady Churchill.
No, Lady Churchill. That would be Winston's mother, right? I'm 99% sure of that.
It might be. We'll double check that. I'm assuming Churchill. So on New Year's Day, Victoria wrote in her journal, another year begins and I'm feeling so weak and unwell that I enter upon it badly.
No.
Dr. Reed saw Victoria in her bed for the first time after 2 decades of service. So he always saw her in a chair or upright. She was in her bed at this point. Wow. She was thin and curled up, and he noted how small she seemed. Oh. The next day, she did not recognize her daughters. Bertie and Alex sat up all night talking to her. She asked Bertie to kiss her face, which was interesting because she'd never really liked Bertie that much. For the past 2 decades, she'd been relatively immobile, being pushed around in that pony chair. And it seems that she hadn't really had many examinations in this time. She was the queen, so I don't think they were like, yeah, let me examine you. Like, It was just kind of, oh, you look good from there. As she lay on her deathbed, they discovered that she had a prolapsed uterus and a hernia, which would have been incredibly painful and would explain her difficulty moving.
Yeah.
Helena and Beatrice didn't want Wilhelm to be notified, her grandson, but Dr. Reed insisted. I'm not really sure why, but on January 19th, or he ended up showing up. On January 19th, they released a public bulletin saying only, quote, "The Queen is suffering from great physical prostration accompanied by symptoms that cause anxiety." That's it. On January 21st, she seemed to have revived a little bit and told Dr. Reed that she was not ready to die and said, quote, "I should like to live a little longer as I still have a few things to settle. I have arranged most things, but there are still some left and I want to live a little longer." In instructions she had written back in 1875, 25 years ago, before, she had said that no one but John Brown and her female attendants were to see her when she died. But with John Brown gone, the task fell to Dr. Reed. And Dr. Reed was a good guy. He was not like Dr. Clark. He was like an okay doctor. Luckily, she was too blind to see who was there. Bertie, Alex, Louise, Helena, Beatrice, they were all downstairs. Her beloved Vicky was back in Prussia because she had cancer. Wilhelm did arrive, and Dr. Reed allowed him to see Victoria on his own for a few minutes. A bishop and a vicar read Bible verses over her and prayed over her, and they were doing this for a really long time, and then she kept not dying. So they actually said, okay, you guys just stop for a bit, because they were like in shifts, and they were like, we'll call you back when it's like the very, very end. So they actually like paused on the Bible verses for a minute, which I thought was like sad but funny a little bit.
Also kind of irresponsible, because it'd be a total egg on face moment if like she died 10
just
minutes
like,
later.
yeah, they're like out there taking a coffee break or something, or a tea.
Did you see that Seinfeld episode last night?
Yeah, basically.
Oh shit, she's dead.
The next day at 4 p.m. on January 22nd, 1901, another bulletin was issued saying, quote, "The Queen is slowly sinking." Dr. Reed and Victoria's grandson Wilhelm held her up and propped her up in bed. And they had their arms around her, holding her up. An hour later, she died in their arms.
Aww.
Bertie reached over and closed her eyes. Now, remember, when the sovereign dies, the next one needs to be kind of
immediately pretty much sworn in.
So Bertie was 59 when he became king on January 22nd of 1901. The coronation, this is just an aside, was set for June 26, 1902, because remember they like to have like a year to plan it. But then it had to be postponed to August because he got appendicitis.
Oh no.
And had to have an emergency operation.
Scabbers, no.
Despite his years known as kind of a bad boy, remember he was like having those affairs with the actresses and stuff,
right.
He threw himself into the role of king and was actually a rather popular ruler.
Oh, good.
2 weeks after Victoria's death, on February 1st, Victoria's coffin was pulled by carriage through London. Novelist Maurice Baring said, quote, "London was like a dead city. One went about feeling as if one had cheated at cards."
Oh, wow.
She had ruled for 63 years, 7 months, and 2 days. The crowd was described as incredibly and immeasurably vast, and Henry James said, "We all felt publicly at first quite motherless. People whispered, 'God help us.' And the grief was thick and unsettling." And they talked about this more, like people really had this, like, she was this mythical creature who would never die, and then she died.
Sure.
So this was like really, people were really worked up.
In America, I feel like the closest equivalent we would have is when Johnny Carson left The Tonight Show. I'm not even joking about that.
A little
by the way.
bit. I mean, I'm feeling
that was
like
a really big deal.
I feel like people are pretty sad today.
About what?
Well, it'll pinpoint when we recorded this.
Okay, fair enough. Oh, yeah. Somebody celebrity always dies, so it doesn't even matter who we mention. But yeah, no, it's sad. That
Yeah,
is sad.
people get sad. So people wept openly in public. Florence Nightingale made sure her house was in full mourning. The crowds were huge and silent. And it's important to note that the passing of the previous monarch, William IV, no one had cried.
Oh.
Victoria wanted a military-style funeral without pomp and circumstance, just officers in uniform and Highland pipers in kilts. She'd seen other military funerals and she was like, that's what I want. She was very practical.
Sweet.
She asked that they play Beethoven.
Extra sweet.
Her coffin was to be, quote, always carried by soldiers or my servants and not by undertakers. About 3 years earlier, she had dictated confidential burial instructions, which were sealed and carried by the most senior person traveling with her and were only to be opened upon her death. So they were opened.
Interesting.
She requested to be buried with a bunch of very specific items. She wanted 5 rings from Albert, as well as rings from Fedora, her mother, Victoire, Louise, and Beatrice. So like her dead people and daughters and things like that. So all these rings. Another ring she wanted was a plain golden wedding ring that had belonged to John Brown's mother. Yay. He'd worn it for a short time, and so she wanted to be buried with it.
That makes me like strangely emotional. I don't know why John Brown so specifically, but
let me keep going then. She required photographs of Albert and all of her children and grandchildren in the casket, but also a colored photograph of John Brown placed in a leather case with locks of his hair and a few other photographs of him which she had been carrying with him since he died. And she wanted that placed in her hand.
Oh, she loved John.
She wanted the cast of Albert's hand, remember that cast, buried with her as well. And she also wanted Albert's handkerchief, a cloak, a shawl made by Alice, and a pocket handkerchief of, quote, my faithful Brown, that friend who was more devoted to me than anyone, to be laid on me. So she had like Albert's handkerchief and a shawl and like all these things. And then she wanted John Brown's handkerchief like on her chest.
Oh.
Dr. Reed, protecting the family, was instructed to wrap her hand in gauze and cover it in flowers after placing the John Brown picture and locks of hair in her hand so they wouldn't see it. Yeah. She was laid to rest in a white silk dressing gown. They cut off her hair and then put white flowers along the base of a veil that she requested to be over her face. And we only know all these details because they were secured in Dr. Reed's personal archives.
Wow, okay.
So he had this secret request letter that was like all the stuff about John Brown, and he kept it in his archives. And so when the family went around to try and get rid of all the stuff about John Brown, they couldn't get rid of it because it wasn't there.
Wow.
And it wasn't actually opened until a century later. Wow. They cut off her hair, and I did a little research on this. I didn't find much, but a lot of times in the 1800s, the hair would be cut off and then made into memorial wreaths. And also, she was buried with locks of John Brown's hair. I think they kept hair a lot, like as a piece of the body that they could keep.
I know that there had to have been anyways historical practices when there were famous people that they knew were going to be influential. A good example is George Washington. When I was visiting my brother in Kansas one time, there's this really great little museum out there. It's like Treasures of the World or something. And I talked to the curator, the owner of the whole thing. He was walking around just chatting with people. And he goes, oh yeah, just see over here. And he like pulls me over to the side. And he had 5 of George Washington's individual hairs.
Oh, interesting.
And he goes, yeah, at the time when I bought those, and it was like, whatever, 30 years ago or something, he goes, those was $5,000 per strand. And he was like, so that, you can do the math and you can count the strands of hair that are in there.
Sorry, my face shook in disbelief, but I didn't make a sound, and I forgot this is a podcast. Whoa! Yeah,
and so I would imagine that for revered people like that, like Victoria, I would almost imagine that there almost have to be certainly somewhere like collectible pieces that are like, no, this actually has strands of her hair.
And then I think about like, she wasn't a religious figure too, but like relics, like
totally
in the church, like I just watched The Nun 2.
I haven't even seen The Nun 1.
Which was worth its five stars out of 10. But anyway, they had like the eyes of Saint Lucy or something like that. So anyway, but no, I mean, they didn't keep her eyes. They kept her hair. Okay.
God, if they kept her eyes, that would just be horrific.
Move on.
Yeah. It's macabre.
Which actually it said like, it seemed rather macabre to keep the hair. But anyway. So when Victoria died, the New York Stock Exchange closed for the day.
Whoa.
Actors abandoned their plays. Like they were on stage and then they just walked off.
That seems dramatic.
Traffic stopped. It was a big deal.
Apparently.
Victoria's reign had awakened something in the world. H.G. Wells believed that the moment the crown was placed on her head, there was a stir of emancipation. A female Japanese magazine editor had congratulated Victoria on, quote, awakening even in these distant parts the ambition to become empress over self. American suffragette Amelia Bloomer said, quote, if it is right for Victoria to sit on the throne in England, it is right for any American woman to occupy the presidential chair at Washington.
We're still working on that one, guys.
Still working on that one.
Still working on that one.
Reynolds News, some random newspaper, wrote, there are many thousands of possible Victorias in the kingdom. No longer can it be argued women are unfitted for public duties. Despite all of this, millions were raped or killed under the expansion of the British Empire in India, Afghanistan, and Africa. She was still there for Britain, but she was distressed at the costs of the expansion of the empire. But it still was, you know, as much as all these people that were around her during her reign were trying to kind of keep her down or put her in her place, it almost seemed like she still had a lot of influence. And remember when I talked about the women at her coronation, and it was like they were so excited. It definitely, regardless of all of those details of every single thing that happened throughout her life, she herself was this beacon and this example and this emblem of possibility.
That's great. I love it.
Victoria was interred at Frogmore House at Windsor on February 4th, 1901, laid to rest with her dear Albert. Despite her years in black, she asked to be buried in white, and for the horses and carriage to be white, and for the coffin to be draped in white. She ordered no black to be seen anywhere, saying that death should not be associated with darkness, but with light, which I know seems ironic, but something that Lord Tennyson said to her later was like, just, it shouldn't be about all this. And I think she finally took it to heart and said, okay. Now also, she was depressed about Albert, but now she was getting to be with Albert. So now it was light. So it was like a re-wedding.
I'm just like laughing at it's like such an audacious move to be like, everybody listen up. And like more or less forcing people to dress in a certain way to mirror your somberness. And then when an entire nation is having to mourn over you.
You were so impressive.
Yeah, and they loved you. You're going to be like, yeah, people,
cheer up.
Let me just tell you something, okay? Get over it, all right?
Cheer up.
Death doesn't need to be this like sad thing, okay? Like we can have fun, right? And you're like, girl, dude, like rewind like 10 years. This is crazy.
I don't know. Everything was white.
Bizarre.
Okay, so this is interesting. I read the afterword of my primary source, which I'll repeat for anybody who's coming along now. And it's called Victoria the Queen, an intimate biography of the woman who ruled an empire. It's by Julia Baird. She wrote an afterword talking about why she decided to write this book about Victoria.
Interesting.
In 2008, she was talking to her editor, I think at the New York Times, about the 2008 presidential election. Because remember, that was the one where McCain brought Sarah Palin on.
I can see Russia from my house.
Yeah. So they were talking about the way that they reported on women in power and how society still didn't seem able to reconcile women with power and how it was such an awkward pairing. Like I'm not saying that Sarah Palin helped herself in the end, but like regardless, it was like astonishing to have a female running mate. Right. And also this was when Hillary had been trying to run and then she lost that bid. So I think about all the changes between now and then. Her editor had suggested at the time revisiting Queen Victoria because it had been a while since anyone had really done any deep research on her. So Julia Baird got to work and she requested access to the Royal Archives at Windsor because how was she going to write this book unless she could access all these letters and all these things? And they rejected her request and she requested it again and they rejected her request. And it happened a couple times. And then someone in Australia got wind of the request, like some sort of prime minister's secretary or something. And then they were like, no, let this woman do this thing. And she finally got access.
That's awesome.
So she went to Windsor, and she was with all these archives, and she said like it was very, under lock and key. Like if you had to go to the bathroom, somebody would go with you to make sure you weren't trying to smuggle out a letter or something.
Makes sense.
She also had to sign something that said anything she wrote, quoted, had to be quoted in context. She couldn't take anything out of context, and that they had the right to review anything she was writing from their archives, which she was like, of course, I'll sign this. She wasn't intending to
Smear.
take things out of, she was just trying to get information that had never been published before and paint a better picture. So she writes the book, and given how much of it is from the archives, she just sends the whole manuscript to them. She's like, you guys have to read the whole book because it's all in. She couldn't take excerpts.
No,
it's like from everywhere. Because, reading this book and knowing what she put out there, she learned all this stuff. She took all these notes. She did all this research, and then she sat back and she wrote it. It is chronological, but there's certain things that are kind of moved around because of, I don't know, the way she told it. And so it was just totally intricate in this telling of the life of Victoria. So she sent the manuscript, and they read the manuscript, and there's like a couple little edits, like, you should check this. This is not actually accurate. Like a few little things. And she was surprised by how little they noted, except they wanted her to remove all of the information she had about John Brown.
I was waiting for it. And then she was like, nah, dogs.
She left it in. And part of the reason is it wasn't under her signed agreement. She got a lot of that information from Dr. Reed's archives.
Nice. Loophole.
And she was like, I'm not going to not tell this story.
It's not fair to not let the world know about this story, because I think it gives I'll be honest with you, is my favorite part of the Victoria story. Period. Full stop. Because it's the most human part, it feels like, of her whole tale. It was like she was forced so often to be a person, to marry people, to have certain amounts of children, to, even though she's a queen, sit off to the side because of blah, 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 blah. And it seems like there was this breaking point of when her husband died, Alfred, right? Albert. When he died, that there was this thing in her brain that almost just said, screw it. I'm done with this notion that I need to obey all of you at all times, and I'm just going to follow my heart. And then she did, and that was John Brown. And I think that's what I loved about it so much, is that it was like, I was hoping to get this out of Queen Victoria. Who are you as a person? Mm-hmm. Who are you as a soul and as a brain and as a mind? Like, I don't know. So to me, the John Brown part was my favorite, because to me, that one felt like, I guess, the most relatable. You know what I mean? Like, contextually very different, but like...
and even the Munchie stuff, too, is actually pretty relatable. It's like, she just found an interesting person that was one of her subjects. Like, why can't I learn more about this?
Totally.
But yes, John, all of it. So it was really interesting how she just kind of was like, no, I'm not going to do that. She didn't, she did what she needed to do as a historian. We can't just leave stuff out that people don't like.
I completely agree. And I'm still sad that they got rid of a bunch of the stuff that she wrote about John Brown, because I would have loved to have heard what her true perspective on it was.
And also the stuff on the Munchie, too. They got rid of all that stuff, too. And
totally.
And then people found stuff that was written by him later. But I don't know. I just think it's interesting that... I don't know. It's just interesting that you keep uncovering these things. And also the funny thing about how well people documented stuff, and like where these random bits of information end up coming out later in life. Well, I guess with that, we will conclude the saga of Queen Victoria, the queen that was unlikely to have ever even made it to the throne. She served for more than 60 years, had 10 prime ministers, 9 children, 42 grandchildren, a husband, and an empire.
Ooh, doggy. I gotta give you a little clappy in the background.
Okay. And next time, folks, I'm going to tell you a 1-episode series. No.
You can't, because that means I would only have 1 episode to write my entire next series. That's not fair to me. Well, first of all, awesome. Loved it. Queen Victoria, everyone. Give it on up. You've made it through at this point, it's probably close to 16 hours of content you just listened to on Queen Victoria. You should be very proud of yourselves. I don't know if it's quite there, but it's close.
If anyone's interested, my document, now there is a couple pages of sources and notes, but I have a 147 page document with 48,448 words. It's kind of cool. 48,448.
That was your script for the series?
Yes, I have it all in one page. So, and that does include a few links and stuff like that too. But
well done. I loved it, and loads of stuff that I had no idea about.
I had no idea about most of it.
Yeah, and as somebody that grew up in America that doesn't necessarily get a rich education on nuanced history like this in any other countries, you get very broad stroke history of these other countries, and very select countries. Man, the amount of just events that happened throughout this time,
and I had
no
to
idea
leave a
about.
lot out because we would have been here for 6 or 7 more episodes.
Seriously.
There was a lot going on. I mean, this is why you take, you hear about people, I studied English literature in college. And you're like, how can you, because you could take one class, you probably take 2 semesters on Queen Victoria. And then you also could take, a class on the people go on to study way more in depth than this. There's a lot to learn, a lot to know. I don't know.
Well, it was rad. Well, I guess before we wrap up here, a couple little agenda items that we should cover here. Now, first and foremost, this one's pretty new for us, but wanted to give a shout out to, I guess I should say, one of our new partners. If anybody is curious on discovering a little bit more about themselves, a little bit more about who they are, a little bit more about how they interact with the world and how they're a part of it, you should check out a site called meetevery.com, meetevery.com. You can download the application. It's a really new application. I think they launched, seriously, as of us recording this, it was like 3 weeks ago. I think the kind of thing that happened was one of the folks from the company truly heard our podcast and said, hey, we should give them a call and a talk to. So we will be featured on that application. It's looking like about once a month at this point, where we're going to curate kind of a test, like a little quiz that, again, it's all about self-discovery and learning more about yourself. So again, for anybody that is curious, go and check out meetevery.com. Did you have anything to add to that, Aubrey?
No, I that was good.
Number 2, our super official sponsor, that is going to be McQueen Pipes. We've mentioned them before. There's probably going to be an ad at the beginning of this episode, but for anybody that is looking for handmade wood-stemmed smoking pipes, McQueen Pipes has got you covered here. That is going to be McQueenPipes.com, MACQUEEN Pipes.com. Use the code BIOGRAPHERS at checkout. You're going to get 15% off your order, and we get a little kickback on the other side of that too. So
great.
Any support you can give us, we would love. Also want to give a quick shout out to my buddy Akiva. Anybody that's looking for a handmade chef's knife, go check out metalworksbymeola.com, MEOLA. That's his last name. Somebody that I do blacksmithing with, and just an amazing, amazing artist in there. And again, if anybody's looking for a chef's knife, go and check out metalworksbymeola.com. And again, you can use the code biographers there as well. It's going to get you 10% off. Now, let's get to some questions we asked and didn't answer along the way. So, I don't know. I don't have any particular cadence. I've been making this list since the beginning of Queen Victoria. So we'll just get into it and go on through them.
Sounds good. You'll teach me on this one.
Yeah. So number 1, I think it was like the first episode, Aubrey, you pronounced Victoria's last name, Regina. And it is in fact, Regina.
Well, it's not last name. It's just her title.
Her title, right,
yes,
right.
Regina.
It is actually Regina, as in
Regina.
China. There we go. I had to think about that rhyme for a second, because nothing else rhymes with Regina that I can think of.
We worked with Regina at a company we worked at together, and that was how she said her name. So Regina.
But it is my
Regina.
father-in-law corrected me on that like months and months and months ago, and he goes, "It's actually Regina." And I had to just go,
"Okay."
Interesting. Okay,
Regina.
cool. And then just move on from that without giggling, because I'm a child. In episode 5 of Queen Victoria, Aubrey mentioned a machine during the Great Exhibition that spun cotton, and we wondered if it was the cotton gin. It was not. We were way off base there. The cotton gin was invented by Eli Whitney in 1793 and patented just a year later in 1794. I couldn't find anything on what cotton machine debuted at the exhibition. However, I did see that it was at this exhibition that Matthew Brady first displayed his daguerreotype photography. So daguerreotype, if anybody's not familiar with the history of photography, was like the first ever photograph, and it was called the daguerreotype. So Matthew Brady debuted that at that great exhibition, and he was actually awarded a medal for it, which is pretty fun and cool.
Awesome.
We kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier in the episode, but in episode 6, I asked if Tsar Nicholas was initially married, I should say, to Catherine the Great. Answer is a massive no. I was so off on this one. Catherine the Great died in 1796. So no. She was 67 when she died. She was married to Peter III of Russia, who died in 1762. Tsar Nicholas I was in power until his death until 1855.
Tune in a long time for a biographers on Catherine the Great. No.
Oh, honestly, that would be pretty good. But he was married to Charlotte of Prussia. In, let's see, episode 6, I mentioned, we were talking about something about Mother Teresa, and I couldn't really recall what city she operated out of, and that was Calcutta. I don't know why I didn't think of that. That was just escaping me at the time.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
Calcutta, India. Pretty quick one. This one is way interesting. So in episode 6, I referenced a water pump as the source of the cholera outbreak when we were talking about the Great Stink, you know?
Uh-huh.
This is indeed correct, and was indeed related to the Great Stink of 1858.
Interesting.
A doctor named, I am not even kidding about this, John Snow.
You know nothing.
You know nothing, John Snow. Dr. John Snow was the man who discovered that cholera itself came from water contaminated with human waste. He had long suspected that cholera came from consuming waste, as cholera is an intestinal disease. Dr. John Snow conducted a thorough investigation to prove his theory by plotting maps of those infected, personally investigating each case like a private detective, and then tracing the majority of the outbreak to a single water pump on Broad Street.
Very nice. That was
interesting,
It
right?
was contact tracing.
Exactly, and that was literally where this was invented. He invented
Okay.
this methodology.
So I love how these obscure facts that like float around in our brains, like sometimes they connect to something.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it goes on from here. So then John Snow was also the person who single-handedly stopped the majority of the disease's spread by simply removing the handle from the water pump.
Oh my gosh.
Not even kidding. Okay. He did have to, like, from what I understand, petition to Congress to make that happen. Like, he had to go, hey, I'm going to get it removed. But from what I understand, and if anybody knows more than me, correct me, from what I understand, it did get to a point where John just went, screw it, grabbed some guys, went over there and just freaking removed the handle.
Huh.
And they stopped drinking water from there, and then, wouldn't you know it, the cholera started just going away. Unbelievable, right? Now, amazingly enough as well, John Snow is also one of the leading pioneers in the development of anesthesia, which you were
yes,
talking
I
about
was
with
talking
Queen
about that.
Victoria, and is considered one of the founding members of modern epidemiology,
Oh, very
which is the
nice.
spread of diseases and stuff like that. So that was, like we said, this is all these techniques. Now, in episode 7, I also asked if the letters between Victoria and Mary Todd Lincoln were available to read online. I found them both.
Nice.
Found them both. The source of both of them is posted on our website, so if you want to see the actual handwriting from both of these people, you can. The link will be on our website. I have it for you, Aubrey, to post.
Nice.
So, the first one is from Victoria, and it goes as follows. Though a stranger to you, I cannot remain silent while so terrible a calamity has fallen upon you and your country, and I must personally express my deep and heartfelt sympathy with you under shocking circumstances of your present dreadful misfortune. No one can better appreciate than I can, who am myself utterly broken-hearted, I should say, by the loss of my own beloved husband, who was the light of my life, my stay, my all, what your own sufferings must be. I earnestly pray that you may be supported by him, capital H,
God.
to whom alone the sorely stricken can look for comfort in their hour of heavy affliction. With the renewed expression of true sympathy, I remain, dear madam, your sincere friend, Victoria.
Oh.
Mary Todd responded with a brief letter that reads, I have received the letter which your majesty has had the kindness to write, and am deeply grateful for its expressions of tender sympathy, coming as they do from a heart which from its own sorrow can appreciate the intense grief I now endure. Accept, madam, the assurances of my heartfelt thanks, and believe me in the deepest sorrow, your majesty's sincere and grateful friend, Mary Lincoln.
Aww.
Isn't that sweet?
It was a little shorter because she was a little sad in the moment.
Oh, come on. It's like, but getting a letter from the queen, you gotta respond. It's pretty cool. So, those are the corrections I was able to find. So I will say, first of all, thanks to everybody for joining for this crazy long series that we just went through. I had a blast. I hope you guys did too. And as a little teaser for you, for the next series, I said I would do it at the very end here and let everybody know what you're in store for.
I don't know if that picks up in the mic, but it was a drum roll.
It definitely does. I will be doing the author, Ian Fleming, who, if you don't know who he is, was responsible for a little character named Bond. James Bond.
Yes.
And I will just say, everybody, I'm like I said, I'm like 3 episodes into writing his series right now. Dude lived a wild life. Like, I'm so excited to do this series because it's just like, there are so many crazy connections. There are so many crazy stories. There are so many crazy, just like all these little details that are like, dude, I had no idea. This might be a little crazy to say this. But where I'm at right now in all of my research, I'm going, dude, this guy's more interesting than James Bond ever has been. Straight up. And maybe I'm just a history nerd, so I love that kind of stuff, but like, it's true. It's the stuff I'm getting into has just been so like, well, here's where it comes from. Here's where the James Bond stuff comes from. It's all this guy's just life, how he lived.
He's writing from personal experience.
Unbelievably cool. So, yeah, Ian Fleming, he's up next, and it'll be coming out on my birthday, which is kind of fun too.
Oh yeah,
so,
very nice.
Yeah. Well, Aubrey, anything else?
No, I feel like I never knew that I'd know so much about Queen Victoria.
And you feel like a boss now, huh?
I feel like
go and have a conversation with somebody in England.
Now I have something to talk about at cocktail parties.
You'll be that person that won't shut up about Queen Victoria.
I'll be like, oh, did you know that Queen Victoria popularized wearing white on wedding day? And people are like, oh, great, cool. So did you hear about blah, 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 blah? And I'll be like, did you know?
Hey, if I was there, I'd be going, no way, fascinating.
They'll be like, okay, but enough about Queen Victoria, weird lady. I'll be like wearing a Queen Victoria outfit.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
No corset.
We need to get on some shirts, I feel like, because that'd be fun if we had a Queen Victoria shirt.
This is not a corset, Queen Victoria, because she gave him up, you know?
We should do like a full body picture on a shirt of Queen Victoria that says like big and proud, you know? Like, I would be happy. I would wear it.
I don't know if the royal.uk or the people would be like, you can't use her likeness.
I'm pretty sure it's like there's copyright stuff on like if they've been dead for over X amount of years, like 50 years or something, you can't touch it. So I think it'd be fine.
I don't know. I feel like there's something with this is definitely not a corset.
This is definitely not a corset?
She gave up corsets because they were uncomfortable, and she was like, I'm over this. I'm a widow, and I'm checking out. And so, like, it's a T-shirt that's like, this is definitely not a corset. No,
or
sorry.
Or just say, screw corsets.
Screw corsets.
And have a picture of her. That would be awesome.
You don't need a corset.
All right. Well, is that going to do it for us?
Yeah, we have been down the rabbit hole.
We have been down the animal bath.
Alrighty then.
All right. Well, again, great job, Aubrey. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And we will see you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
You've been listening to The Biographers. For more information, please visit thebiographerspodcast.com.